to make a little introduction. Well, no, I think you will be the one introducing yourself. So, so pleased that you accept this invitation. For everybody, this talk will be in English because although Sandra knows a little bit of Spanish, normally she works in English, and she is Polish, based in Berlin. And she, as I said in the presentation of the talk or before the talk, she is a super senior agile coach, and she has been training during her time in Accenture all kind of teams, internal and external teams, client teams in design thinking. So she is a global expert. So this is a kind of a luxury talk. So thank you so much. And last but not least, we have in front of our eyes the next diversity manager of the next global diversity manager of Springer Axel. So congratulations for your new position. But now it's time for design thinking. So
yeah,
introduce yourself first, and then.
So Amelia, I think already noticed those numbers on the first slide, and those are summarizing sort of my time at Accenture. I spent there almost 10 years. So the year I met Sonia in 2010 was also my first year at Accenture, and I was there since till October last year. Since October this year, I'm part of Axel Springer, which in Spain might be known for brands like Autobild, Business Insider, Update. So those are the brands that belongs to Axel Springer, which is a traditionally German company. And I'm the only team member in my department who doesn't speak German fluently. So I'm a disruptor by nature, I would say. And as Sonia just mentioned, I'm transitioning soon to a new role. I will be leading all the efforts related to diversity and inclusion at Axel Springer and the entire group. So that's about myself. Do we have a moment just so everyone can tell a couple of words about himself or herself who joined, so I know to whom I'm speaking?
No, go ahead yourself. Don't worry.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Good. So I will kick off with the short presentation about the topic. The topic is a bit of provocation. Is design thinking bullshit? And I need to admit that Sonia had her contribution in that name, because she said, like, go ahead with something provocative. I was planning to name it my learnings from design thinking trainer or something like very, very safe. But she said, no, go big, come up with a loud title. So that's the title. And I will start with just showing the content I prepared, and then we can have a discussion and Q&A at the end. I hope that works for you guys. Good. So referring to the numbers on the screen that you can see, what 80+ stands for. So in my, I would focus on the last 5 years at Accenture and at Axel Springer together. I was part of over 80 different design thinking initiatives. By different initiatives, I mean training, but also client projects, innovation workshops, so everything on that spectrum. And those initiatives took place in 15 different countries across 2 continents. I'm always saying that the coolest place I've ever worked was Mauritius. And there are no business hotels there, only nice holiday spots. And it happened that we had there a delivery center. So that's my favorite location to work from. So that's about my background. And in those different engagements, I was getting a question from participants, from clients, from stakeholders. People were asking, does design thinking really work, Sandra? We know everyone is using that approach, but is it really working? And well, I believe that it's a very valid question, especially now when everyone is looking for innovation opportunities and trying to find a source of for competitive advantage on the market. And design thinking became one of those go-to methods for many companies. And they choose and they're leveraging design thinking as a strategy to innovate. Just to mention some of those companies, we can talk about IBM, SAP, Intuit, PepsiCo, Airbnb, and the longest list is way longer than that. And they're spending millions to teach their people to think like designers. And we're not talking about a couple of employees. We're talking about big numbers here. And those numbers are huge, and the money spent on that are enormous. And companies are not only focusing on training, but also on accelerating this process from the inside, and therefore they're going through the acquisition processes. And Accenture alone, by 2016, they acquired 6 different design studios. Deloitte made 5 such acquisitions, and McKinsey is not far behind. And those numbers are from a couple of years ago. And we observe that trend going on and on with regards to the acquisitions. Before I move further with the content, I would just like to know, guys, from you in the audience, and let me try to find if I can get to see your answers somehow. If you are leveraging design thinking in your organization anyhow, or are you looking for an innovation strategy for your organization? Could you please share some thoughts in the chat box so I see where we are with that?
Nice, Ari, for you to let her know, so you can write on the chat. Oh, yes or no, so she can see on average what's going on. So any of you, it's using design thinking in their job position or in their company?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we hear some are using, but not very well structured. Okay.
All right, don't be shy. You can say yes or no.
We can say yes, or do we need to write it down? Yes. So in several companies where I've been with design thinking as a way of shaping ideas, and yeah. I mean, I've been working many years in the telco industry, and I think
telco loves design thinking. So.
Well, not that much, Sandra, I'm afraid.
No?
Well, depends where. Depends where.
Yeah, here in Germany, I observe that mostly banking and telcos are quite deep into that topic.
Yeah, they spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then we need to see if the execution really follows. I mean, there's
Well, that's another big challenge, right? There is a marketing part, and then there is the value question, right? But if you're using the approach, you've heard about the approach, you might be asking yourself the same question I posed at the beginning, and it's a part of the title of this chat here. Is it really working? And maybe design thinking is just bullshit. You can also rely on the examples of successful companies using it and saying, okay, if they're using it, it must be right. If McKinsey decided to spend so much money to acquire design studios, it must be the right thing to do, right? It's something that we can say it's intuitive for us. We compare our organizations to other successful organizations on the market, and we believe that it's the right thing to follow. But I always encourage people to question that status quo, because I don't believe that there is any universal solution to any problem we have. And I always want to be challenged with that regard. So I want to discuss with you this question later and look at this from many different angles. But for those who are new to the topic of design thinking and maybe just heard it as a buzzword, let's just have a look into a quick definition of what design thinking is. And I'm putting here 2 definitions of design thinking. One coming from Tim Brown, and I think you might know him as an ex-CEO of Ideum, the company that brought to the world the first Apple mouse, and also well known for monetarizing design thinking. And they are very well connected with design thinking as a product we know today. And design thinking, according to Tim Brown, is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, possibilities of technology, and requirements for business success. So we are talking here about the famous Venn diagram, which is used for many, many contexts: innovation, product ownership, design thinking, 3 elements: technology, business, and people. On the other hand, we have a definition coming from Hasso-Plattner Institute, also known as D-School. So this academic home for design thinking, which was founded by Hasso-Plattner, who was the CEO of SAP. I know people often question like connection SAP and design thinking, especially if you're using SAP at your company. But indeed, he was the one who made it possible to found the institute in Stanford, and now it's also in other locations, including Potsdam, close to Berlin. And they're defining design thinking as a systematic, human-centered approach to solving complex problems within all aspects of life. So if we compare those 2 definitions, Hasso-Plattner Institute, D-School, focuses on problem solving, and innovation is the focus of Tim Brown definition. I don't think there is a competition between those. They're rather complementary, but we can already at this stage see how different approaches can be taken on the same subject, right? And building on that, design thinking like strategy and agile suffers from a lot of misuse, and especially the word design, the design part of it. When you think about design, often the first thing that comes to my mind or our minds, it's about making things pretty or making pretty things. And in the context of design thinking, we should open up to broader understanding of design and looking at the design as a process of understanding human needs and then creating product or service that can address them. And this is how we are defining design in the context of design thinking. And it sounds simple, but actually it's a quite high bar if you put it in practice. On the other side of the same name concept, design thinking, there's part called thinking, which again is misleading because it's more about design doing, so trying things out and putting things in practice through rapid prototyping and testing with users, not only sitting and doing the famous thinking, right? So the name is quite confusing, but it's not a topic for that conversation we're having today. I just want to point it out that I'm always keen to share that observation with the audience, that it's not about design thinking, it's more design doing, but for some reason design thinking became a better name for it. And well, today I will be focusing on some misconceptions and myths around design thinking, which led me to elaborate on the question if design thinking is bullshit or not. But let me start from the roots. So I'm still remembering, I think it was like 2.5 years ago, I was traveling around Europe with the goal to teach my Accenture colleagues back then design thinking, and that was specifically in Oslo. So I woke up early and I had plenty of time to get ready, and I decided to check the video my husband shared with me the night before. And it was video called Design Thinking is Bullshit. That was the video by Natasha Yen. It was her keynote during one of the conferences she was attending. And I'm hearing some noises.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No noises.
So I will just continue, sorry. So the video and the recording and the keynote called Design Thinking is bullshit, no question mark. So that's the key difference between what we're talking here. I'm still posing a question mark. She was putting the statement, design thinking is bullshit. And actually, I got curious. I wanted to understand better where she's coming from with that perspective. And I know that her keynote led to many critical feedbacks, and she was also interviewed about that. So going immediately to Google, I've learned that her point of view was based on two elements. First of all, her belief that design thinking is bullshit was based on the poorly delivered design thinking courses, right? So mainly why I was in Oslo that day was train my colleagues. So that was kind of an eye-opener again, and design thinking marketing that promises magic. So that's a second aspect that she brought to the table when she criticized design thinking. She said a certificate for a completion of a design thinking course is not enough to transform business into the next Apple. And honestly, it's I think a huge problem these days. I spend quite a lot of time on LinkedIn, connecting with people, exchanging with people. So I'm always curious how they describe what they're doing. And I still remember this one guy, let's call him Jeff, who updated his LinkedIn profile just a couple of hours after leaving my training, and he called himself a design thinking expert. So like, wow. Seriously, 3 hours training and you call yourself, 3 days training and you call yourself an expert. And I think we have a huge amount of those experts if we look into different profiles on LinkedIn, right? Just going through the training, I can call myself an expert in the field. And as long as I believe that there are subjects where you can master certain skills through theory and theoretical practice, like some calculation, for example, in that case, it's all about putting things into practice. You can be a great expert without ever going through a formal training. You just have this instinct there and a couple of readings done, and you are quite successful design thinker without having a formal certificate, which is also a quite of another topic to discuss if we wish to discuss the certification for design thinking. But nevertheless, that was her perspective, Natasha Zien, on the topic of design thinking and whether design thinking works or not. And I totally agree with her. I mean, poorly delivered trainings and marketing around design thinking are leading to the perception that it's a silver bullet or a panacea that works for everything and everyone, and many people tend to believe in it, leading to further misconceptions. So for now, I would just jump into the myths I identified, building on what I've just said. I want to share with you five myths and misconceptions, you name it as you wish, which I believe are causing a bad advertisement for design thinking. And then I would like to move to some facts and personal experience to build on my belief in design thinking. So the first myth, I call it design thinking is magic. And let's have a look at this one. Along with the secret of gummy berry juice, the magic is growing. They take pride in knowing the fight for what's right is whatever they do. Gummy bears. Yeah, those are gummy bears. So you might remember them from your childhood, or maybe you have kids and they're watching it right now. I'm still watching the old episodes on YouTube. I really love that series. But for those who doesn't know it, it's a story about so-called gummy bears that had this recipe for a juice which allowed them to jump very high and overcome different obstacles, including running away from enemies. And this metaphor and this story often reminds me of approach to design thinking. And when I talk to my stakeholders, gummy bears and the gummy berry juice is one of the things that comes to my mind when I am trying to manage the expectations. Many times I have been asked to jump in the middle of the problem and do, how they call it, some design thinking magic. Yeah, they use those words exactly. Believing that design thinking might be some sort of the gummy berry juice from gummy bears. And just to be very honest, sometimes you are able to jump in the middle of the problem, of the challenge in the project and support, but that's on any level wouldn't be connected to some magical features of design thinking, because those expectations of solving everything with the approach of design thinking is totally unrealistic. And if you ask which approach would be realistic, I would say the following. For sure, there are no guarantees that using design thinking, you will come up with a great innovation, billion-dollar innovation, or a brilliant solution. I mean, someone who is providing you with such guarantee, yeah, either he or she has some magical skills or is just trying to sell you certain bullshit. So what is realistic? So in my opinion, what we can guarantee with design thinking approach, if it's delivered properly, is the good understanding of problem which we're trying to solve before we jump into solutions. And basically, you may have heard about Albert Einstein. I mean, he's saying, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. And there's no proof he actually said that, but according to internet, he's the author of this sentence. And I think there is a bit of exaggeration in it, definitely, but I observe teams spending so much time and putting so much effort to come up with solutions without having a good understanding of the problem they're solving and without having a good understanding how the successful solution, which needs are satisfied by the solution. So again, knowing that, we can leverage design thinking to better understand the problem before we jump into solutions. So myth number 1, design thinking is magic. Second point, I call it design thinking is a toolkit. So in the world of different ways of working, when we talk about agile, lean, or design thinking, I observe, let's call it 2 trends. There are people who consider design thinking a toolkit, and those who see it as a mindset. And I'm definitely in the second group. Unlike agile, however, design thinking does not promote the differentiation between mindset and methods. In agile, there is an agile manifesto and agile principles that can be seen as guidelines or frameworks. For frameworks like Kanban or Scrum, right? Design thinking does not have such fundamentals, I would say. And perhaps this is the reason why people are often putting an equal sign between toolkit and design thinking, and consider design thinking as a fun way of, or a set of techniques that can make the workshops interesting and more visual, right? Even on the way people talk about it, you have a feeling that they're talking about another icebreaker or an energizer, not a certain systematic approach to complex problem solving. And they don't see it as a comprehensive approach to the problem solving. So that's the myth number 2, design thinking being a toolkit. Myth number 3, and I think that one bothers me the most, when there is an equal sign put between design thinking and a workshop. I'm saying like, hell no. I've been asked this question so many times, if my work consists of delivering fun workshops. And don't get me wrong, I'm doing my best to design fun workshops, because that is also about the experience of participants, but it's far beyond that. Workshops and other forms of activities we design, we practice are fun because it's proven that fun enhances people's creativity. But the fun or even the workshops are not the ultimate goal in that process. It's just like a piece of the puzzles that help us to achieve the success at the end. And workshop, it's just a small element, or workshop being a tool for co-creation and coming together to think collectively about solutions or the problem, depending on which stage you're using it. It's just one of the means used to achieve the final success. Myth stop, that was, sorry, I missed the changing slides. I got so excited about that one. So myth number 4, one size fits all. So there is a common belief that design thinking is a plug and play approach. Basically, you can use it for any problem in the very same way. I observed that perception, especially on my trainings, where at the end of the session, people are coming to me, oh, could you please send me the agenda of your workshop or training workshop and your slides, if that's all right with you, so I can use it for my next problem. And as long as I'm always happy to share those inputs, because there is nothing cutting edge in it, it's just showing how people perceive that. Because there's no single set of tools or scenarios which can fit into any case. I know that there are big fans of design sprint, the 5 days approach of solving problems designed at Google, and they claim to be applicable to any potential problems. But still, I observe in the last 2-3 years, they were remodeling the approach, moving from 5 days to 4 days, which shows that actually there's no universal approach. And we need to remember that each problem is specific, each problem has different stakeholders, and that has to be kept in mind when we decide to use design thinking. So design, it's about solving problems and making decisions, not using the copy-paste approach for standard scenarios we have available. And the last myth I want to share with you, it's design thinking is about using Post-its.
This is my favorite one.
So I love Post-it, just to be very clear. I love this product. But I still remember, I think it was around 2 years ago when I offered to my colleagues from Executive MBA program to give them an overview about design thinking. And we had this 3-hour session where you can imagine the audience. It was part-time Executive MBA program, so quite senior participants and different industries, different backgrounds. They found the topic very interesting, but at a certain point, a fairly senior marketing manager stood up and asked me if design thinking had been invented by 3M. So 3M is the company that owns the Post-its brand. And the group started laughing, but to be honest, it wasn't that weird, because I think like 7 years ago, I asked this question myself. But it's only showing how strongly the approach is connected with a specific product on the market. And we got into the conversation about it, that again, the same as with the workshop, Post-its are only a tool. They're easy to move and rearrange. They're easy to get rid of. They're tangible and visible. Then they help us manage the process. especially when we talk about different personalities in the room, with extroverts, introverts, managing all those aspects for collaborative work. Post-its are a perfect tool to make that happen, but it's only a tool. And using this tool does not make you a design thinker. I'm sure that a lot of people at the reception desk are using post-its. So there are like many professions that use them, and for some reason they're strongly connected to design thinking now. And just, guys, 5 myths, and I would like you to, or my wish would be that you forget about them, because design thinking is not magic. It's not a toolkit. It's not a workshop or a universal recipe. And using post-its is not making you a design thinker. And my personal mission is to help people understand the real value of design thinking and real value of human-centered design. And before you guys join, I had a quick chat with Amelia, and we talked about Don Quixote. And she said that in Spain, you are often compared or seeing this character from 600 years ago still very valid. And I often feel like Don Quixote in my mission of helping people understanding the value of design thinking. What do I do, or what is my weapon in that fight, right? I usually use my personal experience and facts. And talking about facts, first, I will move to the Design Management Institute and Motive Strategies that created something called Design Value Index to measure the value of implementing best-in-class design management practices. And on the screen, you can see the data from 2015, and over the course of 10 years, they found out that design-led organizations maintain significant stock market advantage and outperform S&P companies by over 200%. And there is entire methodology in the background of this study. You can go online and find it out. But it's an extraordinary high number. On the other hand, we have a Forrester, and there's a study of IBM from 2018. So it's 2 years old. And that was one of the most comprehensive studies ever made in that context, where Forrester interviewed 4 of IBM design thinking clients, and they've surveyed additional 60 executives who employ design thinking in their organizations. And they asked this question: which outcomes have you actually achieved as a result of design thinking? That's the question they've asked. And here we can see the top 5 answers: elimination of redundant processes across teams, elimination of unnecessary features, products, or services, increased customer engagement, improved employee productivity, and faster time to market. So those were things, elements as mentioned as outcomes of applying design thinking. My personal experience teaches me that design thinking is not a panacea, is not magic. But let's explore this medical metaphor just for a moment. When you're sick, you go to the doctor, you get the prescription for a medicine, you take a pill, and you hope to get better. That's the process. And we're all familiar with the fact that drugs comes very often with side effects. And I believe that design thinking also come with such effects. However, unlike pharmaceuticals, design thinking has rather harmless or positive side effects. And when we talk about those side effects, we can mention here a better team alignment, because everyone is clear about which problem is being solved and works on the same data and information accessible to anyone at any time. It increases democracy, because innovative ideas are sourced from all levels in the organizations, and not only from those with the highest salaries. And also promotion of diversity, because the radical collaboration principles are encouraging and empowering the collaboration across different dimensions of diversity, believing that diverse teams are more innovative, and their data proves that and supports that theory, showing that bringing people together from different backgrounds, ethnicity, education, age, experience, gender, sexual orientation, you name it, all together can help us find better solutions to the problems we are trying to solve.
Sandra, just
yes?
a minute. We are almost time out for the free plan connection. So once we get disconnected, we can jump back again with the same link, right?
Okay.
Just to make sure that everybody understands, right?
Okay, thank you. I thought that Zoom removed that limitation.
No, not for me. I don't know why.
Oh. Okay, so if we are disconnected, we are jumping in back. So yeah. Summarizing, we have design value index that proves that design-led organization outperform the market average. We have a Forrester study of IBM that shows what specific outcomes design thinking brought to the organization and its clients. And then with my personal experience that I've just shared with you, there are numbers of positive side effects which we can expect to see in the organization when we apply design thinking. So again, do I believe that design thinking is bullshit? If you believe all the crazy myths,
don't work like that. So I think there's a bit of, that's my experience, and I think this is where then
yeah, I think your thought is bringing us to another important aspect of building those capabilities in the organization, because you can have this very much bottom-up approach when people on the mid levels are bringing this to work and trying to apply it in practice. And then they're hitting the barrier of top management who is applying less agile ways of working and applying, I would say, old school ways of assigning budgets and approach of measuring and looking into the performance. And I think if you really want to make design thinking happen and work for the entire organization, it has to be both ways, top down and bottom up. Yeah. And only with having this, I call it blessing from the top, yes. Can really be successful, almost embedded into the performance review of top management, where basically employees who are willing to try things out are not blocked by them and their fears of trying new things. So it really takes a lot of guts to do it, because it might be a pricey experience, but only through trying those things out you can really see if that's something valid for you. At least that's my perception and experience so far. Yeah. Whenever we try to use it for the clients or on the smaller scale, or stopping on the bottom up, there was always this level on top which was blocking the further development of product ideas, ways of working, right?
Processes, so, whatever, yeah.
So I'm totally with you.
Anna, go ahead.
Okay, hello. Hopefully you can hear me well, because I cannot speak very loud. Sandra, first of all, thank you for sharing. I fully agree with you that design thinking is a mindset rather than a toolkit. And my question here, I have two questions indeed. Linked to that, the question is, do you have any suggestions or advice to move forward from using the tools to creating the mindset? This is the first one. And the second one is, when you are working in a very technical or specific subject matters, do you think that it is worthy to train people to act as design thinking coaches internally, because sometimes what we feel or realize is that external coaches that don't know at all the things we are speaking about doesn't take the full sense of the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Yeah, good questions. And let me start with the first one. So again, as I mentioned at some point, there are different approaches on how to change the culture and the way people work. And there are those two almost opposing opinions, where the one that says that you have to first change the mindset, and with that you can change the way people think and work, versus those that encourage first changing the way people do things, and then that will lead to the change of the mindset. And my experience shows me that the latter approach is more efficient. At least that's my experience. So by that, there is nothing wrong by starting with the tools if from the very beginning we make it clear that it's a journey. And of course, tools are something that is easiest to embrace for people. And this is something that people can Google, because it's impossible to Google mindset unless we talk about the definition of mindset. And tools you can Google, you can take a picture of the outcome of the exercise. You can touch those post-its. You can almost feel it. And starting with that and constantly reminding people and showing what are the elements of the mindset, where I talk about iterations, empathy, prototyping, all those elements which are contributing to the broader design thinking mindset. I believe that with that you can get to the mindset change. So through tools, processes, to the mindset change. And that's one of the approaches you can take. And for me, it worked quite well. I observe a lot of colleagues starting from a tool and ending up on the mindset side. And that's on the first question. And the second question you've asked about training internal trainers, coaches for technical teams. And I'm not sure if the part technical is really, really important here, but let me try. I think that there is a value on both sides, having internal coaches and hired external coaches and facilitators. And you can benefit from both ways of both type of engagement. You notice the biggest problem when you hire someone external, they have no idea about the subject matters you are working on, right? And I will be very honest, I've also been on such projects. One of the last projects was with the aviation company. I had no idea about planes, airplanes, nothing. and suddenly I had to become an expert, sort of, at least to be able to run a research project. I had to learn the language my research subjects are using. So that was definitely an obstacle, and having someone with that knowledge could make it easier. But from the other hand, people with that knowledge are working a lot with assumptions, and their curiosity might be limited. So you might not explore and learn about certain aspects if you leverage the experts in the field. And with that, I will refer to the technical topics. So I'm wondering what type of challenges you are facing. If those technical topics are related to human challenges, human needs, is design thinking the right approach to apply? If we are talking about technical issues, because we need to also differentiate between design problems versus engineering problems, right? So maybe you rather would need a facilitator who would help you out with leading the group through the problem-solving process, not necessarily a design thinking coach, right? Because with a broader spectrum of methods that facilitation toolkit can give you, maybe that can be more interesting direction to follow.
You are right, because we are a bit in the border between engineering and design, and this is a clue to decide when to apply one or other techniques. Yeah, agree.
Yeah. And I think a skilled facilitator doesn't have to have a subject matter knowledge, because he's there to serve you as a group and to lead you through the thinking process and help you achieving the best thinking results, not necessarily to tell you what the best solution is. That's a huge difference,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Interesting.
And I would share with Sonia an interesting article about this reverse change of mindset, starting from behaviors to getting to the mindset change. It was a very interesting experiment at Toyota. So I will share with Sonia so she can share that further with you.
Yeah, and absolutely, yeah, and we will do it. I will do it through LinkedIn, so everybody can have the access to that link. So, well, I don't know if does anybody has any other question or would like to put some topic on the table. Now is your time. Not every single day you have a design thinker expert next to you where you can ask. No, maybe Eric. Eric, you were interesting in Sandra's approach. Say something.
Yes, here I am. I'm actually, I got interested in design thinking a couple of years ago and did the courses that Sandra described. I don't consider myself to be an expert or an advocate yet, but I've always been passionate about the power of people and what people can achieve, collaboration of people. So I think design thinking as a mindset is a natural fit. So I started applying design thinking in a project that I'm working on, and I have to be honest, it's very difficult because I'm trying to solve a problem that will occur in future. So we're seeing that with technology developments, we'll start to have problems in the future in a certain area, and we're trying to apply design thinking to solve that problem. Mm-hmm. Now, the good thing is that this is very external. So I'm involving a lot of external stakeholders, and they're really interested in the methodology and the process that we're going through. But it is very hard to empathize with people in a situation that is not there. So just to give you an example, try to imagine that you have to do design thinking for people that will go time travel. My project is not extreme, but it's just an example. Mm-hmm. So to empathize with people and to make them understand what the future will be like is very difficult. So in my experience, design thinking works really well if people can imagine not only their current situation, but also a different state rather than a very futuristic state. Would you agree to this, Sandra?
Yes, I will. And actually, I have another article on my mind that we'll share with Sonia to share with the group, because that the same thought was made by one of my service design coaches from my postgraduate degree. And she had a very similar approach and thoughts that you're sharing, Eric, that with design thinking, we can really achieve amazing results if we look into the current problems. And there are different challenging posts if we talk about new market creation, right? Because how can you, as you said, empathize with something that does not exist, or learn about problems that are not existing at this moment, and working with trends. So I totally agree with you. I personally, I don't have such an experience in my portfolio, so I would be happy to learn more from you in that specific case, but it's definitely a limitation of the approach, I would say. Probably more of the systems thinking maybe could be an idea to leverage here, but that's huge limitation if we talk about trends and the future. I totally agree with you.
All right, thank you.
And I will encourage you all to connect with me on LinkedIn, especially since we are all limited to our 4 walls at home. I'm having more time recently, so if you want to have a one-to-one to talk, or any further questions, you can really reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'm quite responsive, so.
She is, yes, she is, and I will share the little secret that you speak Spanish. So yeah. Well, she speaks Spanish, she speaks Italian, she speaks German, she speaks English.
No, my German is very bad.
Her mother tongue is Polish. Yeah. So you can refer to her in any of those languages. I'm sorry, Eric, she doesn't speak Dutch yet. So the future, tell us something about the future. Sandra, how do you foresee, is there anything changing in design thinking? Like have these big companies proved the, let's say, the value of their acquisitions? Have they realized it was something, between this buzzword in the clouds, and now they have realized they don't need it that way? What do you think? How do you foresee the future for design thinking in big companies?
I'm always struggling of gaining an objective perspective because we all live in our bubbles, right? Mm-hmm. And social media bubble, my social media bubble is very, I have a feeling when opening my social media that everyone knows design thinking these days, that you don't need to talk about it anymore, like everyone knows it. And I know that it's a mistake, because whenever I go further outside of my social media bubble, I'm learning that it's still new to many people. And the same, funny, being located in Berlin, very close to Potsdam, where there is a Hasso-Plattner Institute, you again have a feeling that everyone is using design thinking. And I believe that if we talk about future, it's still a lot of companies have it in front of them to still explore, right? And for me, it will become more about democracy in terms of learning how to use it and apply. Because for many, until now, it was, I would say, a luxury to access those trainings. And now when those trainings are moving to digital world and becoming more accessible, and more people can get that knowledge and through technology, and really there are no copyrights on that. I think that's actually the beauty of it, where you can really have it as an open source knowledge, which also creates a challenges for quality, right? Because I've mentioned Agile and Scrum, and you have Scrum Alliance and organization that take care of quality of those trainings, while in design thinking, there is no certification agency out there. Of course, if you are certified by this school, you probably have an advantage in comparisons to someone who did an online course. But at the end of the day, it's more about making this accessible to everyone, and showing people that it's one of many skills. Because for me, design thinking never was a core of my career. It's always a mean to achieve something. You've mentioned my career movement coming in a couple of weeks. And when I was taking the decision, should I take that role or not, I was asking myself how this new role I can link to my values and knowledge and experience I've gained already. And that's another perfect circumstances where I can apply that perspective, knowledge, process, mindset to address people's challenges in terms of diversity and inclusion at the large company.
Interesting.
And I hope that with time and in the future, design thinking will stop being this superpower of someone as a core, and become an addition to, like, this concept of T-shaped personality, when you have this core project management, software engineering, like some core knowledge, and then you have this horizontal line with different skills and experience and knowledge. And I hope that will be that direction and trend, which will help people stay relevant on the job market and still be competitive. And you've asked for the companies and big companies and the future for them. I think I'm not feeling comfortable answering the question in the context of what's happening in terms of Corona and what's will be a source of future challenges for those companies, because I don't know how they're doing at this moment, where you usually work in a collaborative way with research. I'm not sure if they manage to redesign the way that they deliver they value to the clients. I'm sure there will be a process of making that happen, but I think the future of those companies are depending on their ability to change. Luckily, they have a big corporation behind, so they can help them to survive with all their budgets. Otherwise, probably that would be a nightmare for many of those design studios these days.
Yeah, it will be. Well, I think we have been here for more than an hour. I can be here for 2-3 more hours here with you. Like, you know, I'm eager to learn. I guess that the rest of the people who has been here with us, same thing. So I'm really pleased that you joined, and I want to thank you for your time and for your for sharing your knowledge. And thank you so much, Sandra. It has been a pleasure. So share with me the links. I will put on LinkedIn, and maybe there will be a session 2. So
thank you for having me, guys. Please feel free to connect through LinkedIn, and I really appreciate your questions and time spent with me today. Thank you.
thank you.